So, we will discuss research design, need of research design, and why we need to go for research design in your research methodology. Basically, when we talk about research design, it is just like an architecture or a structure of your overall research. Say, for example, when you want to collect some data from market, so it is very important to understand that what for you need this data. Apart from this, you must have some pre-planning before going to collect the data from the market. Say, for example, very simple thing is that a very common example that we give in this research design, that uh, before making any building, you need to go for any design of that or architecture design of particular building. For example, if you want to have the high rise building or low rise building, so accordingly you need to make a structure of the particular building. So a structure become very important because that gives you base of your overall project. So in similar way, you can understand that when you are going for collecting data, so you must understand that why you are going for collecting data, what are the different elements of the design, and how you will process that data. So in summary, if you want to learn about what is research design, it is simply a master plan which specify the methods and procedure for collection and analyzing of information. Now the simple thing is collection of data and analyzing the data to extract that information. This is one of the definition, which is very common definition. When we talk about another definition, which is very simple, research design is the plan, structure, and strategy of investigation conceived so as to obtain answers to research questions. And the very important thing is to control the variance. We will discuss this thing in coming lectures in a very detail. What is variance? What is dependent? What is independent? So we'll discuss about this. So in nutshell, what I mean to say, do we need what information we need to get? If you know, if yes, then yes, you can collect that information. So very important thing is you must understand what information you want. Sometime it happens that when you go for any research project, say for example you are doing your internship right now. Now if you work on some project for data collection, so you must understand that what information, types of information you want, and what information can be extracted from which kind of data which you are going to collect. So this become very important to understand. Now, why we make research design or purpose of a research design? Yes, it may be that to minimize the expenditure. This we have already discussed in class. To facilitate the smooth scaling. Say for example, you want to conduct a pilot study on 20 people. But if your research design is not strong enough, then scaling would become problem. Say for example, the very common example that I understand in this regard is that if I say that conduct a research of MBA students, that how much they are finding relevant to have this industry internship. Now you go to collect data, you research on your 30 batchmates. Now that 30 batchmates is okay, but when you are supposed to scale it up for UP level, then there will be a problem, or there may be some newer issues or newer constraints that comes. So you must have a strong research design which helps you facilitate in scaling of when you want to conduct the same experiment on bigger size of population. Now, research design also helps you to collect data and understand the technique of data compilation. Design is basically a blueprint of your plan or project or whatever you have decided. It also provides an overview to other experts, provide direction that in which direction you want to move. So these are some simple objective of research design. Why you need design? The main thing is that if you move without design, it may increase your wastage, expenditure, or it may not be feasible to experiment or work on bigger size or bigger population, and that is why design must be strong. Another thing is that sometimes your research design works on a small sample, but it doesn't work on bigger sample. Maybe that sometime your research design is not suitable. We'll discuss about the different types of design in next part of lecture. If you talk about the characteristics of good research design, we have already covered these things into our main class. If you talk about what is a good research design, so good research design means it can be generalized. You take a sample of 30 or 20, but when you generalize it over the 100 or over all UP or India level, or you can say sectoral or any particular industry, then it can be generalized, the result, the outcome. The design must have a clear cut objectivity. You want to collect data, so you must have objective. You want to know about the market size, you want to know about the customer behavior, you want to know about the employer attitude, you want to know about the employee attitude. So your objective must be very clear, which helps in choosing particular research design. So your objectivity, a good research design must have objectivity in itself. Research design must be reliable. Whichever design you formulate, it must be reliable. It must have adequate information, that it must provide adequate information which can be validated. So validity of the research is again very important. Say for example, you say that I have collected data from 100 students, right? Now, if it comes about the validity of this particular 100 student data, now when you apply some statistical tools to validate it, there may be some error, because you may not have followed the principles of research design. Sometimes you say that your research design is exploratory, but you adapt the techniques which are descriptive in nature. So it becomes very important to understand that a data must be reliable, must be validated. It must have adequate, adequacy of providing a result. Say for example, adequacy means when we talk about that the youth class of UP, if you want to study that what is the feeling of youth class towards employment status of Uttar Pradesh. Now, if you say that you are going to choose only 100 students of HBTU, so it may not be, you cannot generalize the outcome of this research, because HBTU is technical university. So it cannot be generalized to all UP youth class. Or if youth is in crores, say for example 5 crore 6 crore youth are there in UP. Now you are taking 100 student data. This 100 student data is not adequate to provide complete information about UP youth class. So you must have this, population uh, and sample in a proper proportion. That means sample must be in line with the population. So a good research design take care of these things. Now, before moving to exact, there are some terminologies which are very important. We have already discussed in class, but now we are trying to cover it up. Like you know that dependent variable and independent variables. Dependent variables are those variables which are dependent on some other data or information input. For example, you can say that if you say that the result of semester is dependent on your performance in examination. So your hard work may be independent, but semester result is your dependent on your hard work. So it is, you can say that the result is depending on your hard work. There are some extraneous variables. There are some variables which emerges, when you go for study. Say for example, you decide about study study of say for example, like the example we discussed in class, that the rain in a particular area and the crop. Now the crop depends on the water or rain falling in a particular area. So rain falling is a independent variable, and the production produce, the farmers produce, that depends on the rain. But there may be some extraneous variables which also have impact on this produce. So you need to look into those independent variables which are not directly related to dependent variable or directly related to your main activity, but they indirectly have impact on your overall research. How to control these extraneous variables, that is also important in your research design. You need to understand the confound relationship between dependent, independent variable and extraneous variables. When you want to study more about this, you can refer the book of C.R. Kothari or uh, any other good research methodology book that can give you a very clear cut examples of these variables, extraneous variables, relationship defining. Now relationship defining simply means, sometimes we say that it is a function of this. So dependent variable is a function of independent variable. So we try to identify a relationship between two variables, maybe sometime two independent variables, maybe sometime dependent and independent variables, maybe sometime two dependent variables. We want to establish relationship, and sometime we want to test our pre-assumptions. Say for example, based on certain previous year data, we can say that this year the rainfall will be more than 100 mm on a particular day, or 20 mm or 30 on a particular day. Now you make a statement, you make an hypothesis based on your previous, now you want to test it. So hypothesis is basically, you know, an statement or the pre-assumption or projected outcome based on the past data or past activity or past happening. There are concept of experimental and non-experimental research hypothesis. This we will discuss in a later part of the session. This is overall research design classification. When we talk about the research design is mainly, if you look at, there is an exploratory research, there is an descriptive research method. Exploratory research is also known as formulative research. Descriptive research is basically research called diagnostic research. And causal and experimental research, this is a different than exploratory or descriptive. Say for example, if you don't know the problem, say for example, I say that if I say that the sale of a particular product or the market share of particular company is declining. Now, whether this market share is declining or market share is increasing, when you try to formulate research, that means you do not have problem known to you. If problem is not known to you, then you go for exploratory research, explore things. Exploratory research, right? But if you know the problem, say for example, the sale is declining in Kanpur region. Now sale is declining in Kanpur region is known to you, problem is known to you, but reasons are not known to you. So then you go for diagnostic research. You try to diagnose that why sale is declining in Kanpur. So this type of research is called descriptive research. Now, the descriptive research simply means that you have to investigate into the limited domain within Kanpur, and within Kanpur you have to make your research design. If you know the problem, then your questions to the customer, they will change, question will change. But if you don't know the problem, then your questions will change. So the way you ask to people, that depends whether you know the problem or you don't know the problem. Say for example, I simply say that over the night you someday morning you find that your door is open. So you want to explore that whether this door was opened by a thief or by internal person. You want to know the problem. You don't know what is. But if door is open and everything is in haphazard manner, so you can understand that there is some something happened. So problem, you want to investigate into, you want to diagnose that how many crucial or precious items are missing. So then your research is different. And apart from this, if you know that jewelry is missing and the maid is also missing, if jewelry is missing, maid is missing, problem you know, then you want to establish a causal and experimental research, a relationship between these two. You try to experiment. So your research design is entirely different in this case. So exploratory where you don't know problem, descriptive where you know the problem but you want to investigate the reasons of that, and the causal and experiment when you know the reasons, you know the problem and you know the reason, but you want to establish you know relationship between the causes and the happening. Descriptive research is of two type: cross sectional and longitudinal. When you want to study in description, causal and experimental research is also of two type: informal experimental design and formal experimental design. Informal experimental design, informal, where you try to study before and after without control design. This we will discuss about control design. Let me clear this control design. Control design means a controlled set and an uncontrolled set. Controlled set means you have a very restrictions or limitations fixed. Say for example, controlled experiment and uncontrolled experiment means in controlled experiment you have prefixed the limitations. Say for example, you say that control design means in a laboratory if you want to experiment, so you have fixed your temperature, you have fixed your humidity, you have fixed your lighting, you have fixed your, so every boundary is defined, and on other side no boundary is defined. So when you experiment, informal experiment, that means you try to get the data before control and after control. Now the first experiment that tells you this, that informal experimental design before and after without control design, another is after with control design, and then before and after with control design. So these are three methods where we use control design. We will discuss this control design in coming part of the lectures. And then formal experimental design, where you have a formal procedure. There are four types of methods: completely randomized design, CR design, randomized block design, then Latin square design, and then factorial design. These are four methods. So this is overall research design classification. We will discuss each one in a detail, but I believe that I must stop this lecture at this moment, and we will continue this particular in coming lecture, coming session.